probably within the next 5 years, in my opinion, just about every single industry out there is going to have some type of compliance mandate, because the security is just going to need to keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And why would anybody want to work with a company that's not compliant when the competitors are compliant within the same price, right?
Welcome to Podcast Wise, Perspectives, Cybersecurity, and AI. Today, we confront a paradigm shift. The moment compliance stops being a cost center and starts becoming the single most powerful revenue engine in your organization. Our guest, Peri Rutkovitz, works every day helping organizations cut through complexity and turn compliance into a scalable, trust-building strategic service. As an expert, she is known for translating compliance into business value, showing executives how complex frameworks like HIPAA and CMMC can become opportunities instead of obstacles. In this powerful segment, Peri reveals the true timeline for CMMC 2.0 readiness, the immediate, multi-million-dollar risk of inaccurate compliance claims, and how to structure your service providers to withstand regulatory whiplash without constant operational overhauls. We'll explore why having a multi-framework approach is no longer optional, but the secret weapon for unlocking lucrative, high-value enterprise contracts. If your strategic growth plan for the next 5 years doesn't prioritize a robust, proactive compliance posture, you are already falling behind. This is a critical conversation for every CEO, CISO, and CFO. All right, let's get started. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hey, Peri, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. All right, let's jump right into it. So a little bit icebreaker here. So the cybersecurity world is famous for its acronyms, the alphabet soup, and the technical density. In your experience advising executive teams, what is the single most effective technique for translating complex technical risk into a clear, concise, strategic problem that a CEO or even a board member can immediately act on?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the first thing that I think about is education and really breaking things down. I think that a lot of companies out there think that they have to do everything themselves, and that there's no, partner or other party that can come in and do it for them. They think that it's, their responsibility to figure it out. And in my perspective, it's not. I think that when it comes to the severity of technology and cybersecurity today on why it's so important, of course, the average company is not going to know that unless they're living in this world, right? So part of what our company does, what I think is highly recommended, is really sitting down with the team, especially the C-levels, like you're saying, the CEO, a COO, or a CFO. These C-levels are really the ones that are the decision makers at the end of the day, and the ones that really need to understand more than anyone else in the organization what they're going to be receiving for these technology resources and cybersecurity, and understanding where their company is looking to grow, because our goal too is to make sure that while they want to grow, we're setting them up to be the most secure as possible, right? So I definitely think that education has been a huge component of really simplifying things with our clients, because at the end of the day, you don't have to know the ins and outs, right? You just have to understand what you're getting and how to be able to use the resources. For example, like awareness training, right? We don't expect the company to create awareness training models for their clients, but there's many awareness training platforms out there that they could use that they probably don't know about. So a company like us wants to be able to help and consult them, as well as do the work for them and find those companies to be able to assist in these, because at the end of the day, we're experts in cybersecurity and compliance. And we want to make sure they have the best resources. But again, especially let's say they're in a financial industry, they're not going to be experts in IT, and they shouldn't have to be, right? Or cybersecurity. So the goal is really education and understanding that, it's okay to not know, but to bring in an expert to make sure that you get it right the first time.
Right. It's like, I'm good at what I do, you're good at what you do, right? And then, so let's say you were talking about finance. So, financial literacy, yeah, I understand, the general terms, but I'm not an expert in saying, yeah, I know how to, go invest in stocks, right? That's not something that I'm expert at or even understand. So I would go to an expert and be like, hey, can you help me out? Can you help me invest some money into the index fund or whatever the case may be? I don't even know the lingo. So here you go, right?
No, exactly, right? Because then you're going to be putting in somebody else's, the position of somebody that understands what you're looking for and is an expert in that field. And that's why I think, it's so important that, in today's day and age, these hackers are also experts, right?
Right.
So we also have to remember that if it's not an expert that's deploying these security services for your team, then the experts on the other side that are looking to hack are going to have an advantage, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a whole other thing too, is that, there's a problem that I think a lot of companies too think that they can do it themselves once they are consulted by someone on what products they should be using, right? But sometimes they don't have a full in-house IT team. So they need a managed service provider, all these additional resources, where again leads to needing that additional list of experts. And so we just really kind of push for that because we want these clients to always be set for success. And without an expert in each field, making sure that they're keeping up with the changes, the updates, especially compliance, for example,
Right.
there's always going to be changes and stuff that you have to do to maintain it. One person isn't going to be able to do the IT, the cybersecurity, and compliance, right? So I just think that it's very important to find these experts in each field, like you're saying. Because I feel the same way. If you were to call me about investing, at the financial institute, I
Right.
could tell you every financial compliance and ask, what type of work they do, and then tell them the type of financial compliance that would be best for them. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to go and tell them how to invest, right?
Right.
So I definitely think it's really that expertise and education and being okay to say it's okay that I'm not going to be the best at this, but I'm going to make sure that my team has the best resource for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the regulatory landscape is highly fragmented. Organizations often need to meet SOC 2, HIPAA, ISO, and others at the same time, right? Why do you offer so many compliance frameworks? And how does this multi framework capability serve as a competitive edge for your partners when targeting sophisticated enterprise clients?
I love this question. This is honestly one of my favorite questions that I ever get is why do we sell so many compliance frameworks? So first, a little backstory about our company. We're actually found off of a former MSP. They had a successful exit in 2016 and then started a pure play continuous compliance service company to be able to support other MSPs similar to themselves back in when they were an MSP to be able to supply every type of compliance framework to these MSPs clients. So the MSP would never lose the client or ever feel like they had to have the expertise themselves to get the client compliant.
Okay.
So were really created to be an extension of these MSPs business. That's really what our mentality, even till today, about 85% of our sales are referral based. And then I would say 15% is about direct. But really the goal here is we want to make sure that we can serve every client for these MSSPs and these MSPs, right? We don't want them to feel like they have to go to 6 different places in order to get their clients compliant when, like you're saying, some of them need more than one off the bat.
Right.
So how our pricing structure works is we're a month-to-month service with no minimum, and you get up to 3 compliance frameworks a month in that included flat rate. So
Nice.
our goal is we want to make it affordable and also efficient for these clients to get compliant and make sure that everything is done the correct way. And we've definitely found that, today there's a mandate, for example, CMMC, right? Now we're seeing a lot of clients with ITAR. They're getting ITAR compliance needs, and they're saying that in their contracts, they're going to be ITAR compliant. ITAR is for like the weapons and, for the military and stuff. So a lot of CMMC work, which is for the DoD, is similar. It kind of goes parallel with ITAR, for example, right? So right now, a lot of our clients are doing CMMC and ITAR. Some of them are just doing CMMC. Some of them are doing ISO and by itself. Some are doing SOC 2, as you're saying. So usually the idea is we want to make sure that their clients feel equipped to be able to have as many frameworks that they need in order to always be awarded contracts that they're looking to go for, and to make sure that that MSP and MSSP feels like they are only setting their clients for success and making sure that any type of framework they need down the road, they would be able to supply in-house, or not in-house, but with a third party like us as an extension of their business. And also it really just helps that longevity because compliance is an ongoing thing. So we also help with that reoccurring revenue monthly because they have to do it for forever. So any IT services, cybersecurity services that are offered in this time, they're going to need forever as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of CMMC, CMMC is clearly a force within the defense industrial base. However, considering its foundation in NIST SP 800-171, CMMC is CMMC the biggest compliance mandate currently driving strategic business and technology decision? or are its principles about to impact the non-DIB industry like financial services and manufacturing?
Really great question. So I would say first off the top, CMMC in the United States as of today, yes, I would say is probably the biggest mandate because now we have between now this November 10th, which is already passed, and next November 10th to become CMMC 2.0 certified in order to be awarded contracts after that date. So the goal here is to really make sure that all of our clients are at least able to get a self-assessment in this time period within the next year. So they're on their way to be getting certified, right? So we want to make sure that they're set for success once the certifications are on the contract so they could be awarded any bid that they're going after.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the actual certifications, for example, international ones like ISO 27001, there are mandates in certain industries for ISO, but it's also generally an incredible cybersecurity best practice framework too. It's also a pretty low cost every 3 years to get audited, and it's a really great framework out there. I would say, truthfully, that's probably one of the biggest frameworks out there internationally. But when it comes to today with the mandates, I would say CMMC is there. We also just heard about TSACs for German manufacturers. For example, Mercedes. That's a whole new mandate that is between now and September 30th of next year. So any automobile manufacturers, so dealerships, anybody that is making parts for any German manufacturer has to follow under this TSACs compliance, for example, and that's based off of ISO. So there's so many industries, I think, that are just right behind them, as you were asking, because I think that, yes, I do think that CMMC was just the tip of the iceberg to start these trends of these mandates. But to me, who knows that HIPAA could be next? They're still under a final review. It might not be released, right? Because the last update for HIPAA was in 2013 for the healthcare industry. But then again, it could happen, right? So I do think that it really is the matter of time on what industry is next with these mandates, because I feel that probably within the next 5 years, in my opinion, just about every single industry out there is going to have some type of compliance mandate, because the security is just going to need to keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And why would anybody want to work with a company that's not compliant when the competitors are compliant within the same price, right? So I think it's also going to give it an advantage.
Okay. Now explain the CMMC mandate itself. So November 10th, what happened on November 10th,
So
2025?
November 10th, to the 2020.
What's the timeline, right? So like to be awarded a contract under DoD, what's the timeline? So let's say that right now you don't have CMMC. What do you need to do to be able to bid for a contract in 2026?
Yeah. So first, I would just love to start by saying that this mandate came in effect December of last year. That was told that this was going to happen, right? So people had a year to plan for this before the mandate even happened November 10th of this past year. And now they're giving an additional year of leeway of self-assessments. There could be 2.0 certifications on there that say CMMC 2.0 certification, but sometimes, depending on the contract, they might take 6 months to just be awarded, right? So if you're going through the process today and you already have an SPRS score uploaded to the DoD website, and you're, have a good score, and you have a high level SSP and POAM finished, and you really are really working, and let's say you have 65% done already, right? We ran an assessment. We know for a fact you have 65% of the controls in place. And let's say you're looking to get this contract in 6 months, there's probably enough time, right? Because we're more than halfway finished to the finish line. That being said, we don't know what every client has, so I couldn't say that it would be case by case. But right now we're seeing that, yes, the bids are being awarded months down the road. But that being said, they could also say next month too, right? And that is way too quick. The average client, we work very fast. So the average client is around a year. So you have nothing in place. There's really no policies, procedures, documentation. And truthfully, what takes so long is the clients making the decisions. So for example, in this process, there's going to be certain resources that you have to make sure, for example, you're going to be carrying CUI. That's why CMMC is so necessary. Any CUI data that is going in and out of an organization has to be CMMC 2.0 compliant. We can't not know where that CUI is going, right?
So what does sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
What does CUI mean?
CUI is controlled unclassified information.
Okay.
So I always say it's like a tongue twister because I'm like, the C always makes me think you want to say classified, but it's not. It's sorry, let me say it one more time. Controlled unclassified information. So, of course, it's very important for every country to have their CUI, right? To be secure. So really the goal is to make sure that we do it right the first time, get the best products in there. For example, if they're using a cloud, it probably needs to be FedRAMP compliant or FedRAMP equivalent. And I say probably because it has to be one or the other, right? Not maybe it will. It's either FedRAMP equivalent or FedRAMP compliant. So there's certain tools and stuff that take time to decide on because we need them in order to get the client compliant, because we have to write those policies and procedures. So I would definitely say that the average client, it could take to a year, but I would say it is December. Today's December 5th. So today's December 12th. We are over a month past this date, the deadline date. Companies have known for over a year. Yes, the mandate has hit, as of November 10th. But truthfully, if you are a company out there that wants to work within the DoD space, please reach out to us tomorrow, because this is something that takes time and it does not need to be stressful if you have enough time to get there. And we also want to make it very seamless in your workflow and make sure we follow your workflow and don't flip the company upside down. But there's absolutely no way to do that if you're in a rush. So I highly recommend, if you want any DoD work or you're looking to even get into the industry, you have to get CMMC compliant and start your readiness work, because as we're saying, it is an ongoing process and it is going to take time, and we can guarantee that you'll pass the first time through because our readiness work is so good. But again, we got to make sure that readiness work is so subpar before you go into that audit, because you're going to pass the first time with us. We're not going to let you go in before we know for a fact you would be certified.
Okay. Now, beyond avoiding fines, how can a C-suite executive strategically leverage demonstrable continuous compliance to open up entirely new high value markets, making compliance move more from a cost center to a revenue enabler?
First, off the top of my head, putting it on your website. Right? Marketing is key in business success. I'm learning, even as an account executive, I'm learning every day how huge marketing is for a company, right? So if let's say I'm a prospect looking for a new IT service provider, cybersecurity, whoever it is, I'm looking to, start a new service with someone. I personally, as somebody who works in compliance, am always looking for what compliance framework they have. Mm-hmm. So to me, a lot of these companies, even in the non-mandated industries, are getting these cybersecurity best practices in place. And so to me, again, I think similarly how I said before, what is stopping you from wanting to go with a compliance company? Maybe it's a couple $100 a month edition, right? Maybe it's a little bit more, but to be guaranteed security for your data that's going into their system than not, right? Yeah. So to me, it's kind of clear as day now that if there's a company out there that you're looking for their services and they're compliant over a company that's not compliant, you're going to go with the compliant company because you know that they're doing their due diligence and that even the person on the other screen has been trained on what their compliance is. So I think it's very important. For example, we're ISO 27001 compliant. It's so important for the companies that are especially doing the compliance frameworks. You'd be very surprised also, even in the compliance world, there's a lot of compliance readiness companies that are not compliant themselves. So it's definitely interesting to see, how it's still working out there, right? But I think at the end of the day, becoming more affordable and making sure that these services are valuable and available to everyone is also going to be key in this process.
Yeah. Now, with the rapid pace of AI and data privacy legislation, how can a CISO build a compliance architecture that is agile enough to absorb future regulatory whiplash within requiring a full-scale operational overhaul every 18 months?
Don't hire just a CISO and hire us. That'll first cut a lot of costs and a lot of help, because just thinking off the top of my head, let's say I mean, we have compliance officers on staff, right? So we have them here. The average CISO starts at around 150K a year. Full transparency, you shouldn't be paying a CISO less, right? That's probably what they should be getting. If they're doing the security, they're doing the compliance, project management, they're really running that ship. If you're even with us for a year, you're not even going to probably be spending $100,000. Right? Mm-hmm. So this is something that's an ongoing process, and you can either choose at the end of the day to put that investment and have it in-house, pay a lot more money, or you could go with a team like ours or an RPO, like a readiness company certified with the DoD for CMMC, for example, and making sure that you have experts in every field in order to help accomplish this and keep up with the ongoing changes. So for us, for like as an outlooker, of course, as somebody who is in sales here and does this for a living, to me, I've learned more and more every day. I don't understand why these companies, unless they have at least 500 to 600 employees, have an in-house CISO, right? Because usually they don't even need that because they could work with a company like ours and really cut their costs tremendously. And we keep up with those ongoing changes. So really, I would say is ideally to not go in-house unless you have, a team of 3 to 5 people that you can have on staff. And really utilizing these experts in these other expertise companies as more of an extension of your business, because that's really where the value is going to come in. And I think that power partnering is the new value out there today. Yeah. So I highly recommend that as well. Instead of really hiring an in-house CISO, I just think that it's almost impossible to ask one person to be an expert in 3 different things, right? Yeah. Because on our team here, you get a project manager, compliance officer, and a security analyst. So to me, those are 3 different expertise right there, right? So it's going to be a lot more cost effective to use a third party. And then you could always have somebody in-house maintaining it. And we come back in, right? Like you said, every year for an annual assessment, whatever it is. But we keep up with those changes is for all of our clients. And it really is a significant difference of a price and service and quality that you are receiving.
Yeah, because you're then getting like a 3-for-1, right?
Exactly.
Basically, and also, having different perspectives from 3 different people versus just one. Because
100%.
if you're just CISO on your own, like I know somebody that used to be a director of IT and cybersecurity. And it was like a conundrum because in IT, you're like, yeah, I want everything. I can do everything, blah, blah, blah. But then in security, you're like, no, you need to lock down everything. Right.
Right.
So
right.
it's just like the conundrum is like having, the inside of yourself having that battle.
Right.
You have that battle of like, I want everything on earth for technology, but I can't because I'm also security.
Right. Yeah. And that's why you really need both, right? Best of both worlds. You're going to need all those resources. But no, I agree with that. It's definitely, I think, a problem that a lot of companies have that we've come in and helped with. For example, CMMC, because it's at the top of my head and the biggest mandate right now, we actually have a client going through an audit today. They're going to be our 5th that's going to pass and be certified. We are having actually clients coming to us that have worked with in-house CISOs or worked with other readiness companies out there that are not registered RPOs. So that means a readiness provider organization certified with the DoD. So that means we have 2 RPs and CPs on staff that are literally trained in CMMC. So we know what they're looking for, right? So what's happening right now is we're seeing people go to the audit and then they're failing. And then they're saying, well, you have 3 months to fix your work. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? If you started with us to begin with, we would never have to cross that path. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that because they think most companies are new out there. But as I said, this is our 5th audit, right? So no company coming to us today, no client is going to be a guinea pig of ours. We did about 6 DibCats, which were the pre-audit. So before the mandate in December, we had a lot of clients from last year go through these DibCats. So we learned as a company what they were looking for. Right. And the first one, full transparency, we showed up the SSP, which is really the main documentation of all the policies, procedures, and that the auditor really focuses on when they come in the door. Ours started at 75, right? This was top of 2024, like January 2024, 75 pages. The auditor said, everything looks great, but this needs to be double. I'm looking for 150 to 200 pages. So what did we do? We said, okay, We went back, we had 180 days to fix everything. We went back with 175 pages and that client passed, certified right there. So we went through understanding what had to be done, right? And I think a lot of these companies right now, the first client going through it is the people that we did in our DibCats, which wasn't under a mandate yet, which wasn't hurting the client to a certain extent. We had the time. I think if anything, it's really hard, and you have to be careful going with these companies that haven't had an audit yet, because you're not going to be confirmed that you're going to be set with success and pass. So I think it's really important right now that we're really not in a time anymore to be a guinea pig to any company. It's too much of an expense. And so I really just hope that no matter what company any of these clients work with that work in the DoD space are at least working with an RPO before going into that audit, whether it's us or any other RPO out there. I can't express that enough, because we are getting about 4 or so calls a month just for failed audits that now need to be salvaged and want to go through it again. And, we want to be able to save and fix everything, but we still got to run an assessment again, because we can't just, think that their work was good when if they didn't pass the first time with that, most of their stuff's probably wrong.
Right. There's a reason why they failed.
100%. And also one other thing on what we're seeing the failure is, a lot of these managed service providers are not being looped in with this SSP. So part of the whole assessment, the MSP has to be a part of the audit as well, unless they are CMMC 2.0 compliant. And for example, most of our partners here are not CMMC 2.0 compliant unless 50% of their client base are DoD clients, because it's a big expense and they can go through the audit with us. But so part of what we do as an organization and a partner of these MSPs, we get them ready as well. Of course, at no charge, but we'll make sure that their tool stack and everything is good. So when the auditor comes in for that C3PAO assessment, when that C3PA walks in, they know what the MSP is doing, what we're doing at Choice, and what the client's doing. And we create something called a shared matrix. And that shared matrix really is what we call our secret sauce here, because the MSP is doing all the IT and cybersecurity. How could they not be a part of the audit, right? They're two of the biggest components here. So we need to have that as a huge asset on the team in order to get to the finish line. So we are definitely finding that, you have to be able to support not only the client, but also the IT service provider and make sure that they're also set for success. And to me, that's why I value our referral program so much, because they keep bringing more clients, because our job is to literally make sure that they're set for success with their clients.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Now, a key benefit you offer partners is unlocking client growth. Can you elaborate on the concept?
Yeah. So first, one of my favorite things to do is to compile the client list. So for example, if a new partner of ours says, hey, this is my client list, all of our partners signed an NDA and referral reseller agreement with us. So as I'm saying this is already after an agreement was signed. And as I said before, about 85% of our business is referral. In sales, I'm not looking to go direct either, right? So we love this process and the whole partner relationship. So what my goal is just to basically make the MSP feel like they're set up with their clients for success when compliance comes around for them, and that they know ahead of time than the client getting a contract before they know, right? So for example, today I met with a new partner and he sent me over 40 of his clients, right? So he sent me a list of 40 clients. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 40 of them. I am going to research the industries they're in, the type of work that they're doing. And then I'm going to provide him back with a list of the industries and the compliance frameworks that are either mandated in the industry that they're in, or would be a cybersecurity best practice framework, or a cybersecurity or a privacy best practice framework, for example. So my goal is really to make sure that I'm just at least setting up their clients for success on where their industries are going, because that's our job, right? They're coming to us to know what their clients need. And for example, a lot of times we get a partner that comes in and says, hey, this partner, I have a client that just reached out. They have a contract that says TSAX on it, for example, right? Then I'll say, okay, great. I'll get that quote together. Let's have a discovery call with the client. And then we meet, I'll create a proposal, send it off to them. But then at the same time, in my head, I go, well, do you have any other automobile manufacturers that are German manufacturers? And then, right off the top of his head, he's like, oh, I have two other ones, right? So to me, those are two perfect outlets to be going after of current clients and understanding the needs before a contract comes their way. Because to me, if that client hasn't told them yet, then it's because they haven't seen it on their contracts yet. So now that MSP has room and space to be the one to tell them as that expert for them, for their IT and cybersecurity. And they don't need to know that it was us that told them what they needed, right? We want to make sure that we make the MSP always look good to them and that they're doing their due diligence too, because they did. They reached out to us and got experts, to be able to tell them what their clients needed.
Yeah, and that's awesome. So for a CEO of a growing managed service provider, how does moving their value proposition from selling security tools to selling guaranteed compliance outcomes fundamentally change their internal culture and their client retention rate?
Okay, so first and foremost, right now, the biggest driver for new MRR is compliance.
Mhm.
Compliance comes with a lot of components. I'll say it over and over again, those policies, procedures, and documentation, that is off of the IT services and the cybersecurity services, right? And the controls within compliance. So at the end of the day, if all of your clients are getting compliant, one of the biggest things that I hear from partners today is, well, I've been telling them they need auditing and logging for the past 6 months. Okay, don't worry about it. After this risk assessment, we'll show them their gap analysis and they will see exactly what they need in order to get compliant. Because we know for a fact, as the compliance experts, they need auditing and logging. We have to write a policy and procedure for auditing and logging. How would they not need that, right? To actually be done. So they have to actually deploy it and be using these resources for us to document. So right off the bat, there's all these services that compliance opens the door for these MSPs that are really trying, that are pulling teeth, I like to say, for example, for the HIPAA clients, right? These dental offices literally are like pulling teeth sometimes, just getting them to get HIPAA compliant. And then once they understand, the severity and are educated, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, we should go do it, right? So I just think that at the end of the day, again, education is key, but really when it comes to growing that MRR and really wanting to maintain that relationship long-term with these clients is the compliance, because we're seeing a lot of the big companies out there are supporting their clients with compliance as well now, because they have over 500-600 employees on staff. They have a whole compliance department. But other than that, we want to make sure that these clients don't ever leave their MSPs. That's our goal, right? So by having all these services, we know that they'll never be able to leave them because they're supporting them and making sure that they're maintaining that compliance long term. And we'll vouch for them and we'll support them. And our goal, we always want to make sure that these partners of ours really feel like their clients want to stay with them forever, because isn't that why they're here, right? Because if not, they wouldn't have cared and they would have just gone somewhere else with probably a bigger company with compliance.
So the investment in compliance is significant. It's expensive. How do you advise executive clients to articulate the value of this investment, right? So that they can avoid being undercut by competitors who treat compliance as a minimum effort box checking exercise?
Okay, so yes, it is a big investment. But as I said before, the investment is nothing like hiring in-house, right? Having an expert outsourced is really probably the best way, but it is an expense and it's an ongoing expense. So one of the key things that we do with all of our clients and our partners is we sit down with them and we explain to them that they need an IT cybersecurity budget and a compliance budget. They're two separate budgets, because at the end of the day, you cannot have one without the other, right? But they're two completely different resources. So we have to make sure that there's two budgets for that, which most companies, especially small businesses, don't have two. It's one. IT department, compliance falls under, and cybersecurity. That can't happen because you're going to end up doing a disservice to your company. So what we're finding is by making it a priority, right? Understanding that, yes, this is a big expense, but at the end of the day, if you file a False Claims Act, for example, and you say you have 110 controls in place on the DoD website, and you've never even put in controls yourself, somebody's going to come hit you for $4.4 million. We're talking about millions here. And the worst part, but the best part for them, is whoever is the tattletaler gets 25% of that margin.
Well,
not only are people giving incentives to be able to basically be a tattle on these people, they're really digging hard. So our goal is, it shouldn't matter what your score is today as long as it's honest. If it's a -60, I don't care. We will get it up to those 110, but that -60 is not going to get you in trouble. Whereas if you had a positive 100 or around 110, that's going to really get you in trouble because we can't help you and create documentation tomorrow to be able to refer back to it.
Yeah.
So it's really important. So I would say at the end of the day, it's a big expense, but what is your company looking to do and where is it looking to go, right? If it's looking to grow, compliance is going to have to be a huge priority of yours in 2026. It's going to be, right? If you want to be awarded these contracts, you want to be able to get business, you're going to have to get compliant. Now, the companies that aren't making it a severity are going to get pushed out of the supply chain. And I hate to say it. And that's why, companies like us do exist that are shorter cost, or less cost, monthly, not tied down, and a long-term commitment. But we are seeing that, unfortunately, I think this is the goal of why they're making the compliance such a mandate, is that they're trying to get rid of the low-hanging fruit that aren't doing their due diligence. So I highly recommend that every company out there, including MSPs, make compliance a priority starting in 2026, because also, even in the CMMC, they could end up asking the MSP about the 110 controls that they are supposed to have in place as well. So we will help make sure that that happens and always are explaining and being very clear on what they're going to need. But 100%, I think that at the end of the day, yes, it is an expense, but you have to you have to decide for your company, are you looking to grow? Or are you looking to stay where you're at and risk not getting new revenue or new clients in the future? Because like we said before, if the other companies around you are compliant, why would we go with the non-compliant ones when there are other opportunities, even for a couple $100s?
Yeah. And also, so this is talking about controls, because when you were talking about 110 controls, I remember my old job that one of the project managers, when he was hiring people to be the ISOs, he was like, I'm going to interview them and ask them control questions about the controls.
Yeah.
Around the 110 controls. And if they don't pass any of them, they're not hired. They won't go past go. Right. So
Yeah.
I was like, you're intense, dude, because that's
exactly what they're doing though. Right.
Yeah.
So we've been telling a lot of our partners, as we're showing them and telling them how to do it for the client, like just implementing the controls, we're telling them also you should be doing it for yourself. Put your own tools on your stack, be using your own tools as well, because most of them are. And so we're also advising them. So our goal is when they come in, if they ask for any of the 110 controls, they have an enormous amount of those, if not all of them, to be able to provide for them, right? Because as you're saying, yeah, it's very clear why, if you are the IT and cybersecurity service provider and you cannot say that you have a single control in place, but your client does, that's a problem, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like practice what you preach, right? If you're storing their data too. So it's definitely important, but we definitely say that the MSP does not need to be nearly to the caliber, right, with all those 110, but they do need a very large amount that they are able to say yes, and here they are, if that C3PAO asks. And we are finding that the C3PAO is asking for a few controls. We're not seeing 110 being asked, but we are seeing that we want to make sure that there are at least, up to 50 controls are in place, so they have many to be able to verify when the time comes in the audit.
Yeah. At least have cybersecurity awareness training.
Oh my, I mean, there's very basic ones that it's not even a question, right? I mean, especially the awareness training, the auditing and logging, where your storage, right? MFA. There's so many basic ones that, I think as a fellow security company over there and as a, cybersecurity compliance, to us, it's like clear as day, right? But to the average person, it's not. And so I also want to make it clear that, our team also only wants to help educate and make them feel like they're not dumb or that they don't not understand what's going on. We're there to support them and make them feel like they do and educate them through the process. Yeah. And so I think it's really important for these companies to also feel like they're making a decision for themselves and they want the support, behind it. And I feel like luckily with us, that's really what we do a good job with, is supporting the clients in their journey as well as the MSP. Because, if there's certain policies and procedures that you might not think you need, we know you need it and we'll explain why, right?
Mm.
Most of the time it's not because they're like, oh, we don't care if it's not secure. They just don't understand why it's necessary. So
Right.
to me, it's a simple conversation of sitting down. This is where your gaps are at, showing them from the assessment phase. This is where you're at. This is why it's important. And this is what it would do if you had this, right? And
Yeah.
then of course they're going to say, we don't want that vulnerability. We're going to have to, fill that gap. So I just think that education really is key. And a lot of times people are having a disservice and not getting an education.
Yeah. Now, all right, let's go a little bit personal. My last
Okay.
question for you.
Yeah.
If you could recommend a one non-technical book, whether on leadership, strategy, psychology, whatever the case may be, to every new C-suite executive entering a highly regulated industry, what would it be and why?
Okay, I just grabbed it because I recently read this book, and truthfully, I'm not really a big reader. I'm a writer, but I'm not really so much of a reader. But this book is called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I actually have it right here. I'm not a salesperson for them, but I should be. Sponsor me. But it was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. The thing that I love about this is it talks about emotional intelligence, and to literally the bare minimum, the baseline to, the most depth about your emotional intelligence. I think it's so interesting and so valuable for every industry because everybody has emotional intelligence of some kind, right?
Right.
So it's very universal, but it also helps you deal with your creativity and your emotions with your creativity and how to use it in a beneficial way. So for example, actually, a little bit personal about me, I'm also a screenwriter and songwriter in New York City. And I'm an account executive and work in partner relationships for my family's cybersecurity firm for compliance, right? And one of the things that really stood out to me in this book is, making it that maybe you're not always doing exactly the path that you want to do, but there's always ways to make it creative and unique in your own way from your emotional intelligence and make it worth your while. And to me, it really opened my eyes because truthfully, I started working here during COVID and the entertainment industry wasn't working, right? And everybody was out. And I've grown to love cybersecurity compliance. I really have. If my family was watching this, they would be very proud, I think, because they would be like, really? But I really do. And I think that this book really opened my eyes that, you can be a creative person and really create your own destiny in your work life. And for example, for me, it's sales. And a lot of times in sales, I think I want to talk, I want to understand the client's emotional intelligence. I want to understand, what their needs are, what their pains are. And I think that, it's so interesting to me because this book truly made me feel like I'm not doing something I didn't want to do, or I'm not doing what I want to do, if that makes sense. Like I'm doing what's meant for me right now, and I'm doing it in the best way that I can, and I'm using my creativity to amplify what I'm doing. And I think that it's just really important because so many people out there say, I hate my job or I don't love what I do. And, I feel like it's kind of a mindset too of creating how you want your job to be. Right. Yeah. And so I really think this book is really helpful, especially if you feel like you're trapped or that you are in a workplace that you're not a fan of or something, because I promise you it's going to change your outlook and your view on it. Because one of the biggest components in this book was about only so much you can control. Right. And that's something that my parents have always taught me. My teachers and stuff have always said, you can only control what you can control. And so I think in this book, specifically how it says with your creativity, you have control of your creativity. You have the control of making it your day-to-day or making it not part of your day-to-day. So it's really interesting to me and I highly recommend it. And it actually even says, harness the power of the #1 predictor of success. Nice. So it's really, yeah, I highly recommend it. I, as somebody who's not a big reader, really enjoyed it. And again, it really, I'll be honest, I was happy at this job, but now I'm extremely happy at this job. So it definitely has shown, and I'm hoping that if somebody's not happy at their job, maybe they read this book and they become a little more happy. Right? I'm not saying it's going to take away all your pain or any issues, but I do think that it'll open your eyes to understand that you do have control of yourself and how you work. And if you want to have your, creative edge onto your day-to-day, use it, put it to work because it's going to end up helping you. And for me, full transparency, it really helps me. Every now and then I'll sing or do something for a conference, and then we won an award last conference. So it's just, these are things that make me happy and it's part of my creativity, but doesn't mean I want to go be a singer, on a main stage at Madison Square Garden, right? But it does give me kind of best of both worlds that I can do and put my creative spin to it, and it is different, right? Because what other salesperson in the cyber compliance industry is, going up and singing? So that's just one example of using your creativity that is just appealing to the human eye, because everybody has their own creative ideas, and I want to see it. I always want to understand and know what people's creative backgrounds are or what they love, they enjoy when they're not working. And I think this book can really help kind of open people's eyes, especially if they are in a kind of stuck position. I definitely think it's very useful.
Yes, I totally agree. Now, what is the name of the book again, so that the audience are sure to go get it?
Yeah, it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0.
Okay, and then who is the author?
The author is Dr. Travis Bradbury and Dr. Gene Greaves.
Okay.
And they are also the co-founders of Talent Smart EQ.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
It just says a book with a single purpose, increasing your EQ. So it definitely works. So I definitely highly recommend it. Yeah, I can't express that enough. I just think that it's cold outside. People are staying in. I think a lot of people are, seasonal depression's a thing. It gets dark and gloomy. I really think I'm like, you probably think I'm sponsored by this book because I'm so like passionate about it. But I really think though that this could help somebody's outlook, especially in this time, in the cold, in the more stuck at home phase, because I do really think it will open your eyes, and I really hope it does. And I hope that it helps somebody feel more powerful and more emotionally intelligent after reading it.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, I thank you so much, Peri, for joining me today. And I've learned a lot on compliance, and I hope to talk to you soon. And thank you to the audience, the Wise Crew, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.